Now that we're halfway through the Power Star tier list, there's going to be some pretty significant changes. I finally got a decent mic and have a laptop on the way, which means before long my videos will hopefully be much higher quality. I've been using nothing but my iPhone and a cheap mic to record, edit, upload, and everything, and I've learned a lot of valuable skills I can't wait to apply to more high quality content. For the next couple of videos, I'm still going to be using my phone, but by the time I release the final part, I'm hoping to make something really special. I hope to see you all there. For now, let's look at some more stars, specifically the 8 out of 10s. This is where things start to really get interesting. My scripts are getting longer and the stars are getting more complex. Alright, here we go. 58. Racing the Spooky Speedster. The Boo Mushroom was horribly underutilized in both Galaxy games, and this star shows off why. It's a fun and unique power-up. In most cases, slowing the player down would make something feel unsatisfying and boring, but the Boo Mushroom's infinite flight and floaty physics make it really satisfying to use. This level focuses on descent, which is somewhat rare in the Galaxy games. You build a lot of speed by using these air currents, which is really fun, and the course has a lot of really nice design that works with the Boo Mushroom's abilities super well. I love the parts that make you turn invisible at just the right moment, and the brief tutorial at the start doesn't overstay its welcome while still reminding you of the mechanic of the Boo Mushroom. I would have ranked this mission higher if the visuals were more distinct, but unfortunately this area is just a worse version of what we saw in Ghostly Galaxy. Still, this is a really fun mission, and I honestly wish it went on for a little longer. 57. Purple Coins in the Desert. This star is deceptively one of the hardest in the game. Upon watching the intro, you'll probably be lulled into a false sense of security since it doesn't look too bad. Once you get into the actual level, you realize a lot of these coins are a huge pain in the ass, and one unfortunate mistake means you're starting the whole thing over again. While I appreciate the challenge, it's very frustrating to die here since you have to redo so much of the mission. I don't know how they could have fixed this problem without removing the hard-to-reach coins, so I suppose that's just the price players have to pay for one of the most interesting purple coin hunts. A lot of these coins require some pretty precise platforming, including the ones on top of the thwomp, which are very notable. As far as I can tell, this is the only part of the entire game that specifically requires the backflip spin wall jump spin combo that's so important for advanced movement in Galaxy, and that's really cool. I'm glad the game is forcing players to learn this mechanic since it opens up so many fun possibilities throughout most of the game. So much of Galaxy can be broken with this technique alone, some of which was clearly intentional and some of which was clearly not. Regardless, this technique single-handedly makes every level your playground, and I'll be talking about exactly what you can do with it as these stars continue to get better. As for this mission, I don't have much to say about it beyond what I already have. What you see is what you get. It's a really fun challenge that wraps up the Galaxy super well. 56. Sunbaked Sandcastle. This mission is actually one of the most cohesive in all of Galaxy. Every single planet here sticks to the same theme, rising or falling sand. The start has you dodging blocks on a rising sand platform, the small planet that leads to the secret star features sinking sand, the starship tower has you changing the elevation yourself, and the namesake of the level has you desperately running through a glass tower to escape rising sand. I really like how this level continues to build on a relatively simple concept, and the two tower planets in particular are super fun and memorable. Sadly, I'm not nearly as big on the smaller planets, and while I love the cohesion, I don't think rising sand is such a cool idea that an entire level really needed to be built around it. This concept could be done almost as well as in a 2D game, and I'd much rather Galaxy focus on more unique mechanics that take advantage of the unique gameplay. Still, a really good time with a lot to love, and one of the main reasons I find Dusty Dune to be massively overhated. 55. Breaking into the Battle Rock. Hang on, this is not only the best mission in Battle Rock, but the second best mission in the entirety of the Fountain? What? I didn't realize the Fountain was such a low point for Galaxy. Every other dome has at least 6 stars left to talk about and at least one 10 out of 10. Damn. Anyway, this is what the first Battle Rock star should have been. Not only does it actually utilize the inside of the battleship, but it also introduces a fun new mechanic in the form of bombs. These are used throughout most of the mission and are really fun and satisfying in this game due to the amazing sound and visual design. I don't know why the timer is this absurdly long though. I'm almost always waiting 3 or more seconds for the bomb to explode even after I put it in position. I really like the Polestar section in the final planet, and the shot of Mario flying out of the battle rock as it explodes from the inside is awesome even if I have no idea what's causing the explosion. If you had to show someone a single star to describe what Galaxy is all about, this would be a pretty decent one to use. It's not the best of the best, but it's really solid and incorporates almost all of Galaxy's major mechanics in a fun, engaging way. 54. Revenge of the Top Man Tribe. This is it, my final chance to complain about Top Maniac being terrible. Top Maniac sucks. This star has quite a few fun sections, including a huge flat planet with a bunch of lasers, a really awesome Polestar section, and a cube planet with blue star chips. Unfortunately, this mission doesn't have anything super standout, meaning it falls to the wayside and isn't nearly as memorable as some of the other stars in the Galaxy. The Polestar section gets kinda close and single-handedly puts this mission above the 7 out of 10s, but ultimately this is another star that capitalizes on most of the game's mechanics very well without striving to be anything more. Since this is the last Top Maniac mission, I'm going to end this section by giving him as many compliments as I possibly can. He looks pretty cool, and... 53. Soaring on the Desert Winds. This star is significant because not only is it the last Dusty Dune star I've ranked, but it's also the first of many stars to come where I struggle to come up with genuine criticisms for him. The music is just good instead of amazing like the rest of the game's OST, and the tornadoes look pretty weird just floating in place, but that's about all I can say that isn't positive. The 2D section is a ton of fun, and I love how it shows off the bouncing fireball physics, and those tornadoes are super satisfying to use due to the amazing sound design. The tower is a blast all the way up, and I love how there's so much variety crammed into it. There's more tornadoes to use, a really cool wall jumping section, and even just platforming on the sand waterfall sets the idea of this tower being a real structure with a real purpose. Dusty Dune Galaxy is in the bottom 5 for main galaxies to me, but I still think it's vastly overhated, like I said earlier. Sure, it has some of the worst stars in the game, but it also manages to be a really fun twist on a desert level that has a ton of fun and creative ideas. 52, Darkness on the Horizon. I wanted to put this star way higher on the list since it has some of the coolest sections in the entire game, but the slow and boring autoscroller is such a drag. It goes on for over a minute and doesn't introduce any new mechanics. It just builds upon the gravity switching in a boring and awkward way. That said, everything else in this level is absolutely incredible and could have easily made it into the 9 out of 10 range if not for that terrible section. Dark matter is such a natural fit for a game based in space, and I love how it is utilized here. The platforms moving in and out of existence are super weird looking in all the right ways, and the rest of the 2D sections are a ton of fun. I love the goopy purple look of the liquid dark matter, and the death animation is genuinely really disturbing, which adds a lot to the intensity of the level. I love the way this stage uses gravity too. You're rarely on flat ground, and there's a ton of walking on walls and ceilings. This stage is on the shorter side, which is unfortunate, but it definitely makes an impact while it lasts. The Bowser fight is absolutely incredible, and I love his new spin attack, but I'll talk more about Bowser later on, since all 3 of his battles have the same basic concept. This level is also notable for being the last required mission in the game. You have to beat this and collect at least 60 stars in order to unlock the final level. That's very fitting, because that mission is the only one in Galaxy that has a more badass name than this. Darkness on the Horizon sounds like an edgy teenager's band, but it's just edgy and foreboding enough to be unironically cool. 51. Honey Hive Cosmic Luigi Race. Yes, I'm ranking the Luigi version of this star instead of the original because it's just straight up better in every way. You're likely to be caught completely off guard if you play Luigi's playthrough immediately after Mario's, since Cosmic Luigi is significantly faster and makes less mistakes. I almost ranked the Cosmic Mario missions instead of the Luigi ones since the Mario playthrough is obviously the main game, but I changed my mind at the last minute for absolutely no reason. This particular race introduces the Cosmic Comet quite well, but I honestly didn't have much to say outside of that. I like the added blocks, and the final section could be super intense if you're trying to make a comeback, but outside of that, there isn't much to say. A fun and challenging star in the Luigi playthrough, and a fun and piss-easy one in the Mario playthrough. 50. Bubble Blastoff. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this one. Strap in, because this is by far the longest section I've written for the series thus far. This is the last star in the WTF trilogy I alluded to in the last video, and it's easily the weirdest of the bunch for a ton of reasons. To start, this is plopped right into the middle of a main galaxy, whereas the other 2 were their own separate levels. This makes its bizarre nature even more confusing and odd, and now that I'm trying to write a script, I think I see what's happening here. Most likely, developers couldn't come up with a way to make this second mission more distinct, so they decided to just go as wild as possible. They did this by combining a ton of assets that either went completely unused or were extremely underutilized elsewhere in the game. I actually really love this. I mean, objectively, this mission is kind of terrible and would be a horrible first impression to Galaxy, but it certainly accomplished its goal and is absolutely one of the most memorable missions in the game. The start is the same as the other Deep Dark missions, aside from a major detail I'll get to later, but there's another torch you have to light behind the gate. Once lit, an ice flower will spawn, and you have to use it to jump up some sprinklers. Or you could just trivialize this entire section by wall jumping up to the higher areas without it, but any excuse to use one of the greatest Mario power-ups of all time is a good excuse. Oh yeah, I'm super biased for this thing, by the way, but we'll get into that much later when it's properly introduced. There are some pegs to swing on and an optional pipe with some 1-ups, but eventually you'll make your way to the edges of the planet to reach the first bubble launcher. There's also this really weird disc thing that turns into 5 sling stars when you touch the coin above it, and all but the middle one just launch you into the middle one? What? I would love to know what this thing was originally going to be used for, but it was probably just something the developers were messing around with to test the sling stars. The bubble launches you to a tiny water planet with a bunch of Cheep Cheeps bouncing around it, and you have to defeat them all in order to make another bubble launcher activate. Fun fact, and something I didn't realize until writing this script, these are the only Cheep Cheeps in the entirety of Mario Galaxy. There's a few more in 2, but those are the only ones in this game. Interesting. After defeating them, you're taken to what is hands down the weirdest planet in Mario Galaxy. Let's call it the Watermelon Tennis Ball Laser Planet. A toad is floating on a starshroom nearby, and he tells you to, and I quote, use ground pounds to make those tennis balls hit that watermelon to get that power star, a piece of advice that everyone should obviously keep in their hearts. Doing this isn't hard whatsoever and only mildly annoying because of the laser beam enemy that harasses you. Before I can move on, I have to mention the start, because like I said, it does something special. The cannon has been overtaken by an undergrunt gunner shooting bubbles, and you have to launch coconuts back at him to take the cannon back. Not only does this fit the theme of the level for obvious reasons, but it's also really satisfying to do, making this level stand out even more than it already did. Overall, I have no idea what to make of this star, but its weirdness and memorability are just enough to squeeze it into the top 50. 49. A Snack of Cosmic Proportions. This star is an absolutely incredible tutorial for a concept that absolutely doesn't need one. The stage introduces the concept of hungry Lumas, special Lumas that transform into new planets or galaxies when fed enough star bits. Each and every Hungry Luma in the game explains what they want before you even are given the chance to feed them, so I have no idea why we needed one of the very few required stars in the game to be a tutorial dedicated to teaching you that. That being said, it's a super fun level and actually one of the most unique in the game due to how open-ended it is. After the opening section, you're thrown into a cluster of planets that you can travel between freely, and you'll likely travel to all of them as you need to collect a total of 100 star bits to feed the Hungry Luma. There's next to no challenge here, which is disappointing, but I love the open-ended nature of it, and the launch stars that you activate while flying are really fun too. Surprisingly, the Luma doesn't spawn the final planet of the mission, being the only one in the game not to do so, which is pretty weird for a tutorial. What we do get are two of the best planets in the game back to back, followed by one of the worst. The planet the Hungry Luma creates is a great playground for your movement in 3D, and the second one is the first 2D section in the game, and it's a ton of fun too. The final planet is... How the hell did this make it past playtesting? I mean, seriously, there is absolutely zero challenge, it's literally impossible to die or even take damage, the gravity is super awkward due to the weird shape, and the planet is also just ugly as sin. I mean, look at this thing. The cherry on top is the fact that you can literally just long jump to the star without bothering to grab the blue star chips, and it's pathetically easy to do. I guess I can't dock too many points for this horrible ending since this level is already one of the longest stars in the game, but it's still frustrating they didn't cap this great mission off with more of a bang. 48. Bunnies in the Wind. Here's another consistently fantastic star that kinda shits the bed at the end. The puzzle cube was pretty clearly designed for the purple coin star first, and catching the bunny isn't nearly as fun as the developers probably thought it was. It's just too easy, and as a result, almost the entire puzzle cube is unused. There's very little reason to explore after you catch him in 2 seconds. Still, this star is probably one of the most famous in Galaxy due to the music, which has been lauded as one of the greatest pieces of gaming music ever composed. I agree, though I don't even think I'd put this song in the top 3 of Galaxy's OST, which just goes to show the quality of the soundtrack overall. It also helps that this level is absolutely gorgeous all the way through. The small glassy planetoids and the bright blue sky are super striking, and the way the vines and floaty fluffs connect them all together is really memorable too. The puzzle cube is also great as a planet, but I'll talk more about it when we get to the star that actually uses it correctly. I love gameplay that utilizes a bunch of smaller planets, and this level has that in spades. I love that well-placed triple jumps and backflips can let you skip around freely if you're skilled enough, and the enemies give a nice excuse to explore every side of the planet. There's not much more I can say about this star, honestly. It's another really solid mission with a ton of high points and only one unfortunate low point. 47. The Underground Ghost Ship. Atmosphere is the main focus of this star, and I think it was handled phenomenally. After the same start of every Deep Dark mission, you're forced to swim through these underwater caverns in order to reach the ship of the level's namesake. I haven't really talked about the main planet of Deep Dark Galaxy, but I find it to be incredibly well made and underrated. The beach area has a ton to explore, the caverns are unsettling and claustrophobic, and the music fits the area absolutely perfectly. The real highlight, though, is obviously the ghost ship itself. The holes in the ceiling shining light into the cave, the sandy area to explore, and the ship itself all contribute to a fantastic atmosphere, even if there's not much reason to explore any of it in this specific mission. The boss fight against Camilla is a really good reuse of a previous boss since she's so unexpected, but it's still a lot more difficult due to more limited space to move and her extra hit point. I won't go into much detail aside from that since I already talked about the Daredevil comet, but one thing I forgot to mention is that the barriers she sets up have really cool looking effects. My one and only complaint about this level is the lack of difficulty. I understand the other 2 main galaxies in the garden are supposed to provide the challenge, but it's pretty hard to die in this mission since there's so many coins and so few enemies. Maybe making the caverns much tighter would have helped the swim up to the ghost ship be a little more engaging from a gameplay perspective. Slimy Spring Galaxy from the second game is a much better take on this concept, but that level as a whole is significantly above average even by Galaxy standards, so being unfavorably compared to it isn't that much of an insult. 46. Purple coins on the puzzle cube. A great use of a planet that basically went to waste in the main mission. There's a lot to love about this star. Outside of the 2 others, this is the only purple coin mission in the game to have more than 100 coins. There's 150 total, and grabbing them all without a guide to help is one of the toughest challenges in all of Galaxy. I spent hours experimenting with different routes and optimizing my movement, and when I finally pulled it off, I was elated. I will admit that without this optional challenge, this star would rank much lower, closer to the 6 out of 10s. The timer is way too generous if you're only going for 100 coins, and I think asking the player to grab 120 or so would have been a much more balanced for a late game mission. You may say it's unfair to rank this star so high because of a self-imposed challenge, but look at it this way. This star is responsible for one of the toughest and most satisfying challenges in any Mario game, and I think it deserves to be rewarded for that. 45. Big Bad Bugaboom. There's one aspect of Galaxy I haven't touched on much in these videos that plays a major role in how much I like the game, and that is glitches and skips. Once you've mastered the bro's movement, a ton of the game becomes your playground, and this is the first star of only a few in the game that was clearly designed with these skips in mind. While Nintendo may not incorporate intentional glitches into their game design, even though more developers should honestly try to do that, they do very clearly account for advanced movement techniques that allow for skipping parts of this level. In this star specifically, you're supposed to activate bubble launchers and use the bee mushroom to navigate the planet, but there's nothing stopping you from climbing up the walls with nothing but a backflip spin, wall jump spin, which is the technique I mentioned much earlier in the video. It's super satisfying to do this, but the level's also a blast when played normally. This is actually a consistent problem I have with games like this. When both the main path and the shortcut are equally fun, I feel like I'm missing out on something regardless. That said, I'm not genuinely going to criticize the game for that, of course. I mean, that'd be like criticizing Elden Ring because there's too much weapon variety and you're forced to miss out. But as I was saying, the main path is also fun on its own, and I like how it incorporates the main planet and several mechanisms. There are also mandibugs and stones all around the level that introduce ground pounding, which is unbelievably satisfying in Galaxy, especially with the homing variant. After escaping the main planet, the player gets to fight the namesake of the level, and he's a pretty terrible boss that progresses into a really good one by the end. The first hit is literally just an easier version of the mandibugs, the second hit is also really easy but incorporates the bee mushroom in a cool way, and the last hit is incredibly fun to try and land. Bugaboom is constantly rotating his body, and you really have to anticipate when and where he's going to be flying with his back exposed. If the boss had more health and the mission were a little longer, this may have jumped up to a 9, but as it stands, it's still a great star and a great Galaxy. 44. King Caliente's Battle Fleet. This is another one of those missions where I don't really have any criticisms. In fact, this is probably the most flawless level we've looked at so far, though it's not super long and doesn't reach the highest of highs either. I love the tropical planets and especially the battlefield one. Both show off the combat focus this star has very well. The ships are really fun even if they aren't nearly as interesting as the sections from Space Junk, and I love how the octopus enemies combine with the previous beach planets to introduce coconuts. It sets up the really awesome boss fight super well, which has one of the coolest looking boss arenas in any Mario game. The animation of King Caliente reflecting the coconuts is kind of weird looking in the best way, and the trio of fireballs are super fun to weave through, and the blue lava bubbles add quite a bit of challenge. A great boss to end a great mission. That's also the last star in Good Egg Galaxy. It makes sense this galaxy would rank fairly low. Its role as a tutorial limits how much it can stand out compared to later missions. Still, Good Egg is honestly comparable in quality to Bob-omb Battlefield from Mario 64. Both show off what their games are going to be about while still managing to stand out on their own with unique elements. 43. Burning Tide. This secret star ranks this high because Melty Molten is by a mile the second best galaxy in the game. The main planet is a ton of fun to explore, and you'll have to do so to reach the pretty high star bit requirement. I'll go into the main planet when we get to the main missions later, but for now I want to talk about the Hungry Luma planet itself, because it's also really great. The concept is super simple, a circular planet with rising and falling lava and 5 silver stars to collect. Things are kept interesting with steam geysers, blue lava bubbles, fire bars, and more, and thankfully the game gives you a life mushroom to deal with all this. Fittingly for this galaxy, this section can be brutal and deadly if you aren't paying attention. The lava bounce can often combo you into even more lava, which starts to add up very quickly with how few coins there are, and some of these platforms require you to time your movement just right in order to make it in time. Overall, this is a really fun secret star that adds a fun new planet to one of the best missions in the game. 42. Cosmic Luigi Forest Race. This is easily the biggest gap in quality between the Mario and Luigi playthroughs. The Cosmic Mario Race is a relaxing romp through one of the best areas in the game that was done way better in the main mission. While the Cosmic Luigi Race has the exact same course layout, he is a genuine threat that doesn't allow for any major mistakes whatsoever. There's no good way to skip any parts of the course aside from this one speedrun trick that's really finicky, so there's no way to beat Cosmic Luigi aside from straight up outpacing him. I love this, and as I alluded to, the entire wooden structure is one of the best areas in the game, but we'll talk about it more later on. The last thing I want to say is that if you hold down the Z button as the number 2 is fading and then press B right as the race starts, you'll gain a pretty sizable speed boost for a bit. This can be done in every Cosmic Comet, but I wanted to mention it here because it's the only race where you might actually need it. Also, who doesn't love a good Mario Kart reference? 41. Frosty Cosmic Luigi Race. We finally made it to the last main galaxy I haven't talked about yet, and this is easily the best one in the game. I'll get into why this galaxy is so special in the next video, but here there isn't much going on. It's the most simplistic cosmic race in the game, and yet it's still my favorite because ice skating is just that fun. Ice skating in Mario Galaxy is without exaggeration one of the most enjoyable movement techniques in any game I've ever played. The physics are unrealistic to the point of lunacy, but goddamn do they feel good. Maybe a bit too good for this race, since not even Cosmic Luigi can put up a fight if you just spam long jumps. There was definitely room to move some of these platforms around to make things more interesting, since the race course is literally just a straight line with a couple of gravity flips, but what we have definitely still works. I would argue the previous star is objectively the best Cosmic Comet, especially in the Luigi playthrough, but this one is so much fun I can't help but put it higher. 40. The Galaxy's Greatest Wave. Oh boy, if you don't have this game locked in your memory like I do, you may be wondering what this mission is doing all the way up here. It has an identical aesthetic to the first Manta Ray level and doesn't add any new obstacles. Well, there are 3 things that make it work for me. 1. The difficulty is incredibly balanced and the track design is a perfect evolution of the concept. I especially love this loop-de-loop. 2. There's an optional sling star off to the side after you complete the race. Taking it will launch you to various floating platforms all around the track with penguins to talk to and star bits to grab. While it's completely useless, it's super charming and fun, and I wish Galaxy had more parts like it. 3. The glitch. If you do a homing ground pound on the coach in just the right way, you can actually land on the starting gate and long jump into the water. This is incredibly finicky to do since the camera kind of freaks out and the angle is pretty precise, but it's definitely worth it since now you can swim through the entire course without the ray. It's really janky and there's absolutely no reason for it, but it's so much fun. I like to challenge myself to do an entire lap this way, which can be really hard given how much the camera freaks out and how hard it is to tell where the water ends. You can even get on the ray manually and continue the level as normal. That's awesome. That's all I've got to say for this one. Let's move on. 39. Honey Hive's Purple Coins. I'm very conflicted on this one. Most of the exploration-based purple coin missions are up in the 9 and 10 out of 10 range, but this one has a few things holding it back. Firstly, why are we not using the bee mushroom? That is literally the entire point of this galaxy, and it would have fit perfectly. Secondly, where is everybody? There are 0 NPCs in this level, which makes the atmosphere lonely and boring. Loneliness is actually one of the main themes of Galaxy to me, which I'll be touching on later, but this level doesn't do it right at all. If it weren't for the amazing music that plays throughout most of the missions in the galaxy, this star would feel genuinely creepy, which is obviously not fitting. Despite a frankly boring atmosphere and some serious missed opportunities, this level still ranks this high because collecting these coins is a blast. I love so many of these hiding spots and how it uses every inch of the planet, and finding those last 10 or so coins can be a real scavenger hunt on your first playthrough. There's honestly not much more to say. A concept I absolutely adore that's held back by some weird decisions and is outshined by similar purple comets. 38. Gateway's Purple Coins. The final star in this video is a very special one. This planet, commonly referred to as the Gateway to the Starry Skies, is without question my favorite planet in the game and one of my favorite areas in any video game period. It's absolutely gorgeous and represents Galaxy as a whole extremely well. It feels isolating and lonely, yet soothing and relaxing at the same time. It makes you feel at home while simultaneously leaving you in awe at the vastness of space and just how small you are. The song that plays makes me feel such raw and powerful nostalgia that it almost makes me tear up every time I hear it. I'll go into more detail about the planet at the start of the next video because, spoilers, the next star above this one is Grand Star Rescue, but for now I want to talk about some story stuff, starting with Rosalina. She is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, mainly due to nostalgia. Her design, voice, powers, and limited role in the game make her feel like a sort of god, all without making her intimidating or off-putting in the slightest. She's wise in ways the player will struggle to comprehend, and her backstory is one of the most memorable stories in any Mario game. I absolutely adore the storybook and plan to make a video on it someday, so I won't go into much detail right now. In this particular mission, Rosalina gives a speech about the life cycle of Lumas, foreshadowing the ending of the game. She also mentions that she returns to this planet once every 100 years, and while this may sound like a simplistic line, the implications here are actually incredibly significant to those interested in the lore. Normally I couldn't give less of a shit about lore in Mario games, but Mario Galaxy in particular is captivating from start to finish, and there's a lot of complexity beneath the surface. However, this is not a lore video, and I don't have time to go into that right now. I'll talk about it when I make that storybook video. As for the star itself, it's only about as good as the purple coin omelet, which I talked about in the first video in the series. You literally just fly in a straight line for about 40 coins and then effortlessly pick up the rest with nothing but a few Goombas in your way. It's the true introduction to purple coin missions, and it also introduces the red star power-up, which is the best and worst part of the star. I love how it controls so much, and the outfit Mario wears is far and away his most underrated appearance in the main series. Unfortunately, this power-up is only available in this mission and unlocked in the Comet Observatory after beating it. That's pretty disappointing, but I also understand that such a powerful tool would be pretty hard to design a level around. Still, they could have at least tried. This is easily my favorite flight power-up in the series, so having it be limited to a super simple intro level in the hub world is a real shame. While obviously much slower, this power-up is basically a controllable version of the launch stars, which are easily one of the best parts of the Galaxy games. Even if the level itself is honestly pretty awful, this planet is way too special to me to rank this star any lower. Also, the star is red and it looks cool. And that wraps up part 4. Sorry it took so long to get this out, but like I said, things are going to get a hell of a lot better for this channel very soon. I should have a new laptop within a couple of weeks, so that'll help me make a higher quality content and edit it much faster. Right now I'm still using iMovie, which is pretty tedious to work with, and I don't like it. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and I hope 2025 is a great year for everyone. Goodbye.